Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this particular video has to do with our entire nation and President Donald Trump and Doge. And of course, you know, since he won this new re-election, I've never seen one individual that heightens the emotions, either on the right side or the left side. Either they love Donald Trump or they hate him in one individual ever. There is no middle ground with how people feel about President Trump. But him, since he took office and he said he wanted to have a recalibration and of these governmental agencies, and we all know with our $1 trillion deficit, there is governmental waste. And you see a lot of it in many of these alphabet agencies. So if we're talking about recorrecting our debt, the first thing we need to do is look internally. No different than an audit. If you own your own company and your company is failing, you got to look at what you're doing wrong first. So historically, President Trump coming back into office, he's kind of shaking up things. If you look over the last 60 years, most of these presidents have basically grabbed the baton and have continued with the natural course of action and letting things stay the same. But each and every president, the Federal Reserve, they all talk about our deficit. There's been a deficit forever, and the deficit is increasing. And maybe President Trump is correct that there is governmental waste. I think that personally, probably 25% of these agencies and these employees probably do need to go. There needs to be a reverberation, a new health and wealth in many of these governmental agencies. You have people that have been in these jobs, these city, state, and federal government jobs for 30, 40 years. Maybe they need some of those. Maybe these agencies are too top heavy and they need to retire. Maybe we need young, fresh blood, people that are eager to work, to have new and fresh ideas, not just doing the same thing over and over again. So I do believe that probably 25% of government waste needs to go. And now, Doge, so remember, he's gone after Medicaid. Congress has supported it. He's going to have $1 trillion worth of Medicaid cuts. I'm not in favor of that one. But he went after U.S. aid. He said he was going to go after FEMA, but held back. There's been several disasters where FEMA has been needed, even here in St. Louis, Missouri. But this one is really a big controversy. This is about the Department of Education. And I believe that should be at the forefront of one's desire to have an audit of the Department of Education. If you look at the statistics in the urban market, you have children that are ninth graders in many of our big urban cities that are reading on a 4th grade level. Their math scores are on a 4th and 5th grade level. These are ninth graders. We have gotten so far away from education being the foundation of our existence today and our future tomorrow, that this generation of kids that are out here today are running amok. Society has changed drastically. We have been promoting overly sexualized music, chasing the bag by any means necessary, paying athletes, basketball players, baseball players, football players $40, $50, $60 million a year versus a middle school teacher who can barely make $50,000 or $60,000 a year not able to own their own home, let alone they are drowning in student debt. And think about it. There would be some of the most underpaid professions are teachers, nurses, police officers, our public safety, our firemen, all need raises and increases. You take our teachers, there would not be any doctors, lawyers, NBA basketball players if it wasn't for parents and teachers. Our teachers are right in alignment with parents as a foundational point for nurturing children emotionally, physically, psychologically, intellectually. Teachers are needed. You cannot have a healthy society without a healthy school environment and curriculum. Nurses, there would be no great doctors without great nurses. They go hand in hand. Police officers, firefighters are putting their lives on the line each and every day. They are underpaid and underappreciated. Correctional officers, who are the police officers for our jails and prisons, are underpaid, understaffed, underappreciated. So we need to have a change, a machination of change in what we value economically, and how important these jobs are versus all of this entertainment, this overflow of entertainment and these exorbitant salaries that we're seeing in the entertainment and sports industry. And we're forgetting the foundational jobs and people who make this country go, our middle class folks. So yes, I actually agree with President Trump that the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education, needs to be dismantled. And I think that these schools need to go back to the states, and the states need to be responsible and accountable for their city schools throughout each and every state. But one of the big issues about this, and while there's a lot of rumbling, is not so much about the loss of jobs, is really about the federal funding. St. Louis, the state of Missouri gets about $7 billion from the federal government for the Department of Education that's federally funded. If the schools go back to the state, or the education department goes back to the state, many of these districts will lose that money. And I believe that's more of the issue. And this bureaucratic controversy is not about the kids. And that's quite evident if you look at what these test scores are like and how these kids are turning out. Many of them, the enrollment for college is down. The enrollment for trade schools are down. We're going to have a whole network of individuals that are going to be lost in the sauce. So let's see what they're talking about with the U.S. Supreme Court clears the way. The U.S. Supreme Court clears the way for Trump to gut the education department. So the Supreme Court is supporting this. And you have to remember, with the Medicaid cuts, Congress and the Senate supported it also. Trump wants to cut in half the education department workforce. So what actually happened? A judge has blocked massive layoffs and transfers of key functions. Opponents say Trump's move will impair department's core duties. Department critics accuse it of bureaucratic waste. So the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for President Donald Trump's administration to resume dismantling the Department of Education, part of his bid to shrink the federal government's role in education in favor of more control by the states. So we're talking about governmental waste, we're talking about our $1 trillion deficit, and he wants to shrink the federal government. And I think in a sense that should happen. This is the first time in 60 years that we're seeing a president go after its own agencies and try to reduce some of this debt. In the latest high court, win for Trump. The Supreme Court justices lifted a federal judge's order that had reinstated nearly 1,400 workers affected by mass layoffs at the department and blocked the administration from transferring key functions to other federal agencies. A legal challenge is continuing to play out in the lower courts. This is all very important. Even though a lot of people don't like Trump, I think with a lot of his adjustments, a lot of him going after these agencies, a lot of these executive orders that he's putting out, even if you don't agree with him, I think for the first time you're seeing where the average person now gets an opportunity to go look up, read the U.S. Constitution, read the Bill of Rights, find out exactly what's going on. This is in the news all the time, and I think it's an educational, it has educational value to it. The day you stop learning is the day you stop living. And I think from that standpoint, whether you agree or disagree with Donald Trump's cuts, it is getting more people to become more aware of how the government runs and what's going on. And how does the Supreme Court function? How is your congressman and your congresswoman or your senators, how are they voting and legislating on your behalf? The Supreme Court action came in a brief unsigned order. Its 3 liberal justices dissented. A group of 21 Democratic attorney generals, school districts, and unions behind a pair of legal challenges had warned in court papers that Trump's shutdown efforts threatened to impair the department's ability to perform its core duties. Well, I don't think those core duties have been performing very well. If you look at the bulk of our students in America go to public schools, urban schools, county schools. And if you look at the test scores, I don't think that the Department of Education has been doing a good job as of late. And this has been going on for a while. What is going to happen to these ill-informed, untrained young people that are going to enter adulthood and enter the workforce and not be prepared for work? Democracy Forward, a liberal legal group representing the school districts and unions, said the court's action dealt a devastating blow to the nation's promise of public education for all children. This is very important. Even if your kids go to private school, the basic foundational system that's in place for our educational system is in our public schools. Your kid may go to private school, but you can still have a deleterious effect on you and your children. How? Your kids might be friends with kids from public schools. If the bulk of our kids in public schools are not getting properly trained and educated, what are they going to end up doing as teenagers and as adults? Possibly committing crimes, possibly being in an element of helplessness and hopelessness, possibly being affected by the opioid crisis, mental health issues. There's a lot of things that can take place where even if your children go to a private school, you shouldn't turn a blind eye on this issue with the Department of Education. It says we will aggressively pursue every legal option as this case proceeds to ensure that all children in this country have access to the public education they deserve. Well, these children have access to it, but the public education is not up to par. And that was said by Sky Perryman, the group's president and CEO of Democracy Forward. Now, the Department of Education was created by Congress in 1979. The Department of Education's main roles include administering college loans. We know that has gone through the roof and is drowning individuals that have attended college, graduated, and now they have $200,000 worth of debt that they will never be able to pay. It also is tracking student achievement, which is at a very low subpar rate if you look at the national average, and enforcing civil rights in schools. Now, I do think the federal government and the Department of Education should have some say in that, ensuring that civil rights and civil liberties and everybody getting an opportunity for an education is very important. It also provides federal funding, this is the key, for needy districts and to help students with disabilities. That is what the real issue is about. Federal law prohibits the department from controlling school operations, including curriculum, instruction and staffing. Authority over these decisions belongs to the state and local governments, which provides more than 85% of the public schools funding. And I agree with that. It should be controlled, and it is the decision by the state and local governments. The department's Republican critics have portrayed the department as a symbol of bureaucratic waste, underlining the need for smaller federal government in favor of greater state power. I'm in agreement with that. Here again, look at the test scores. In March, Trump sought to deliver on a campaign promise to conservatives by calling for the department's closure. We're going to be returning education, very simply, back to the states where it belongs, Trump said on March 20th, before signing an executive order to close the department to the maximum extent allowed by the law. He has put out so many executive orders, many people don't even know what an executive order is or what is even being done. And I think it's great now, whether you agree or disagree, that now people can look up and say, what is an executive order? What actually is this guy that I like or don't like? What is he trying to do to our rights and our freedoms? He said that Trump said that certain core necessities would be preserved, including Pell Grants to students from lower income families and federal funding for disadvantaged students and children with special needs, though he said those functions would be redistributed to other agencies and departments. So Pell Grants are still be in place. That is not going to be affected. And remember, Pell Grants are not student loans. Trump in March directed that the department transfer its $1.6 trillion student loan portfolio to the Small Business Administration. And that's where it should be. It's a loan. It shouldn't be under the Department of Education, or there should be a symbiotic relationship between the Department of Education and the SBA. And it says that it's special education services to the department, and then the special education services should be under the Department of Health and Human Services. And I agree with that. If you own or work in an assisted living, a nursing home, residential care, you would know a lot about health and human services. They are a governmental agency that oversees and makes sure that people with disabilities and elderly people and children are being treated in the most healthy and appropriate way in these facilities. Although formally eliminating the department will require an act of Congress, the downsizing announced in March by Education Secretary Linda McMahon aimed to slash the department's staff to roughly half the size it was when Trump took office in January. As I said, I think at least 25% of these governmental agencies need to be cut and slashed. We are not in a day anymore where you're going to work for one corporate company for 30 years and get a retirement or a pension. However, if you have a state, city, or federal government job, that is the one area where you can work there for 40 or 50 years, do very little work. And some people, I'm not saying all that work for the government, you can do your job, pass paper, stay there forever, and still draw a pension. So that's a good thing, I guess, for people that have city, state, and federal jobs. And it's hard to be fired as a federal or state and city employee. McMahon called the court's action on Monday a significant win for students and families. And remember, postal workers fall under the federal government status as an employee. The U.S. Department of Education will now deliver on its mandate to restore excellence in American education, McMahon wrote on a social media post. The foundational, fundamental core to a successful society existing is your healthcare system and your educational system. And if our educational system is fragmented, which everyone sees today, there is over 50% of our kids in our public schools are not reading on their appropriate grade level, let alone have futuristic desires to go to college, to go to a trade school. We have an uncanny or panacea of young people that are going to be lost in the sauce after they become 18 and finish high school. Also in McMahon's dissent, in her dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote that the Supreme Court's actions had handed the president the power to repeal statutes by firing all those necessary to carry them out. So I'll read that again. In her dissent, which is Justice Sonia Sotomayor, she wrote that the Supreme Court's actions had handed the president the power to repeal statutes by firing all those necessary to carry them out. So you have this chasm of the president, his lawyers, these executive orders, and then you have these three chambers. I'm calling them chambers. You have the Congress and the Senate that could either interact, intervene, go along with the president, and then you have this other group of individuals that a lot of people don't know about. I think you have 9 Supreme Court justices. They are the overseers of how these executive orders and these laws are being enacted and how they affect the rights, the U.S. constitutional rights of our United States citizens. So the Supreme Court plays a major role. Lifting the lower court's block will unleash untold harm. Delaying or denying educational opportunities and leaving students to suffer from discrimination, essay assault, and other civil rights violations without the federal resources Congress intended, wrote Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, who was joined by she was also joined by fellow liberal justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Boston-based U.S. District Judge Myung Jun, an appointee of Democratic former President Joe Biden, had concluded in a May 22nd ruling that the mass firings would likely cripple the department. He ordered the affected workers to be reinstated. He disagreed with Trump and blocked the administration's plan to hand off department functions to other federal agencies. The Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on June 4th rejected the Trump administration request to pause the injunction issued by the judge. And so the Justice Department, in a court filing, asked the Supreme Court to lift June's order and accused him of judicial overreach. The plaintiffs had warned that the mass firings at the department could delay the disbursement of federal aid for low-income schools and students with special needs, prompting shortfalls that might require cutting programs or teaching staff. And that's what I think the biggest issue, where each individual state, the mayors, the governors, especially in these Democratic blue cities and states that are in an uproar because they want that federal money. As I said, in the state of Missouri, I think they were getting like $7 billion. And now how are they going to make up for that windfall? And And then will that affect teacher staffing? There is already an understaffing of full-time teachers at many of your urban inner city schools. They have way too many temp teachers, or what they call full-time temp teachers. And there needs to be more full-time certified teachers in these institutions. You have kids with low test scores, and you have a lower rate of teachers that are fully certified full-time at many of these urban schools. And so you have this dichotomy where there are issues that are going on that have nothing to do with forwarding the education of our young people. They also argue in court papers that Trump's shutdown effect would undermine efforts to curb discrimination in schools, analyze and disseminate critical data on student performance, and assist college applicants seeking financial aid. Well, that's just what I'm saying about this entire story. As it says here at the end of it, we're talking about student performance, analyze and disseminate critical data, and assist college applicants. Well, half the students in many of our urban schools are not even going to college. I even have a desire to go to college. You have too many of them that want to be rappers and basketball players, and you're 5'7". Hard to be a rapper if you can't articulate and put a paragraph or two sentences together that make sense. We have mumble rap. We have gotten away from where we need to be holistically, harmoniously, and our educational system is falling apart. And I think President Trump shedding some light on this situation hopefully can bring a reverberation and restore that education is the key to anyone's intellectual, financial, and physical freedom. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience.